We're now being recorded, and I'll do a backup recorder as well. So,
yes, you've definitely done a couple of investigations in your time.
Yeah.
Record twice.
Yes. How do I do this right? I think we're recording now. Yeah, we're recording on both devices. So, thanks very much, David. I wanted to have a chance to give you a phone call before the interview, but we haven't had that chance.
No,
so I'll just go through that rapidly, what I was going to go through on that phone call before we get started. And I've explained the background. So just a few questions before we get started on a structured interview technique which we're using to get at what you really think in a sort of not too subtle way, but sort of trying to get bring out stories. So first few questions, how would you describe leadership that you see in your work world? What words or phrases spring to mind?
Visible. So visibility is probably the biggest leadership technique that we need.
Okay. I mean what do you see in practice? What you see in practice? Yeah.
So visibility. Going from where we were when I first started at QGC, which was fairly startup mentality in a way. The level of visibility that leaders have to have out in the field impact that construction safety, process safety, all those safe elements within the safety sphere. If you're not visible, then people won't take you seriously in it. And it's that visibility that's probably the biggest key.
Okay.
Because you can bleat all you want and tell people what you need to do this, you need to do this, but if you're not seen out there doing it or out there actively promoting it, then it's just rhetoric.
Okay. And who do you regard as engaging in leadership at your workplace? And you can give me names, but they will absolutely not be disclosed, or you can just give me job people. And what do they do to do that engagement in leadership?
Over the last few years, I've actually seen it change. Previously, a lot of the engagement was done at manager level, trying to drive the requirements of the business or the culture that people are wanting to develop in the business. And where we went from, we had a TRCF of probably up around 10 at one stage, massive, and we've come down last year. It was told it was 1.74, I think we brought it down to now, which was about 0.4 below what our target was for the year. So that's a good outcome. And a lot of that's now coming because that culture that was driven by the senior management as a leadership aspect is now coming through with the people who've learnt their skills on the job. So 4 or 5 years into the job, they've effectively learnt what the business is expecting of them. And they're now driving it at not just at the lead at management level, but also at the worker level. If you have, where you actually see the biggest turnaround is in managers. The actual people on the ground, once they're on the ground in QGC, they're not going to go off the ground here to go work in a refinery somewhere or work in an LNG plant. The skill sets are that's where they're going to be for the next 20 years potentially. Whereas managers, they'll come in from externally, bring in new ideas, but also get trained in what the safety culture is of the business by the people at the lower level now. So I'm actually seeing that leadership transition from the managers that brought it in the first place down to the people on the ground actively leading in a safety culture.
Very good to hear. Okay. What do they do?
What do they do? Stop the job. That's probably the biggest one that I've seen. Raise concerns. People actually will actually say, oh, we're not certain about this anymore, and actually actively go out and seek that confirmation rather than just blindly going ahead because that's what the procedure says. Well, that's what they've been asked to do.
Okay.
But also actively mentor new people coming in. And if they see someone new coming in, they'll talk to them, they'll explain what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing. Managers come in, they ask them, what are you doing? That type of question. There's no longer the stand back and try to keep it all into yourself and cover what you're trying to do, just in case you're doing something wrong.
Right.
They lead by being open with
Okay.
what they're actually doing. And it's that openness and transparency that is the result of the visibility leadership that came out early.
Mhm.
Is now you're seeing the openness, and I find that as a safety leadership technique as well, because if you're not open, then things will get swept under the carpet, and you won't know about it and won't be able to fix it.
All right, great. When an urgent operational or technical problem or safety-related issue occurs, who has the authority to act?
Depending on what's classed as urgent, if it's an immediate threat, anyone.
Okay.
I know of scenarios where we've had a leak off one of our well sites, and the person on the ground has made the decision that no, this is an unsafe situation, and acted accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, if it's not something that will go bang immediately,
Mm-hmm.
there's a more streamlined process to be able to move it up the food chain to people who have the authority to actually say yes or no about something,
Mm-hmm.
move it up to the field managers or the field operational managers, depending on what the severity is. As once it gets to someone who realises, actually, no, we need to do something on this,
So
then they can act.
you said streamlined there, so how does that work?
So previously, used to come in, people would notice something, they'd put it on a report, they'd wait for it to come through, someone would pick it up 2 weeks later once they actually read the report. Now we've got better means of being able to report, but also that openness again that I was talking about. If someone notices something in the field, they know it's not quite right, but they just don't quite know, they'll call their line manager or call their line manager's line manager if they can't get their line manager.
Great.
To actually ask those questions and say, well, do we need to do something here?
Great, okay, thanks. How effective is leadership in your work world, and what are the signs of that, of whether it's effective or ineffective?
The signs of effectiveness for me would be the ability to implement change.
Okay.
In either direction, doesn't matter where it's coming from. But if you can't implement change, then you're not leading.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to force something on people that they don't want.
Got
That's
example?
not leadership. An example. Just try to think of a good one. I love it when people put you on the spot.
Relax.
I know it's not an exam. You just
I'm trying to get what you think.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to think of a good example.
Don't worry if you can't think of one straight away.
So, I'll give one from last year. So, last year there was an incident up at the Midstream plant where they had a valve isolation scenario where they closed a valve thinking it was the correct valve off the PNID and found out they had an error on the PNID.
Oh, okay.
Which resulted in isolating a couple of PSVs that shouldn't have gotten isolated.
Okay.
And they were trying to isolate a different one.
Right.
So that was picked up, but it wasn't actioned properly, so it was marked up on a drawing passed through. And then there was a lot of pushing to get the document control person to update the procedures to be able to pick all this up. What ended up happening was my line manager at the time actually found out, because he was in charge of engineering and document control, found out this person was getting asked to do all these things. Go, no, hang on, stop. That's not actually a document control function, what you're asking them to do. It's an engineering function for control of documentation. So they're not the right person to be doing that element. Let's pull it back. If you don't have someone up there that can help you with this, or you need help, we'll send someone up. So I ended up getting sent up there to help the document control person, work in conjunction with them, because there's an element of doc control, but there's also an element of engineering.
Absolutely.
And work together to try to find a process to actually map out what they're supposed to do with these documentation. But it was that intervention at the management level that said, actually, no, it's not the right person doing the job here. And that, for me, is a means of influencing and making change occur. Because then you've got the right people out there that are having the conversation, but it's also a united front in the conversation. So document control, someone from an external engineering group so not from up there, coming in and talking to everyone and finding out